She said she felt like she'd run out of options. She didn't know what to do about the baby. To say that it is a woman's right to choose is also unclear, because it is not only her body, but another's as well. Would Chris Hart have killed his girlfriend because he found out that she was pregnant? And we have all sorts of evidence placing Chris at the scene of the crime. She tipped her head to the side. What's your theory? This is embarrassing. Barry's making this poor woman look like a complete ass. Was she going to tell the father about the baby? Nothing I said could make her change her mind. That's the argument that she's trying to sell to the jury. It hurts to lose my daughter. It hurts more than anything else has ever hurt in my life. A father ought to be able to tell that his daughter's suicidal, right? Your daughter is dead. I just don't know. Let's go easy on the guy. And then Jordan's like, was it murder or was it suicide? Like, hello, and welcome back to another episode of our book club series. If you're new here and you don't know who I am, my name is Brooke. I have different types of content on my channel. What you are watching right now is a continuation of our book club series. Right now, we are reading The Pact by Jodi Picoult. We read chapters of the book together, and then we discuss the characters, the drama, and our theories and opinions about what we think might happen. So if you enjoy books and book discussions, then stick around because you will definitely enjoy this type of content. If you want to catch up to where we're at right now in the book and the discussion, there is a playlist on my channel called Book Club The Pact. I will link that up here for you to click on that if you want to go through and watch that playlist and catch up to where we're at. Or if you just want to watch like the last few videos leading up to this one and jump in from there, you're welcome to do that as well. However you choose to catch up, we would love to have you join in with us. I always do a quick recap of the last few sentences that we read in the last video, just so that everybody's up to speed and we all know what's going on. Other than that, I believe today is reading number 28. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully next time you guys stop by, I will have a Christmas tree or I don't know, something cute in the background. Because like I really want to be festive, but it's like a lot of work. Just this itself is a lot of work. And then like being festive is also a lot of work. But anyways, hopefully next time you guys stop by, there will be some cute Christmas decorations in the background. And if you follow me on socials, I'm on TikTok and Instagram, and that's pretty much it. I'm on TikTok, mainly on TikTok and Instagram. I'm on Snapchat too, kind of. It's the Snapchat is Brooksy, BROOKXIE 77. It's Brooksy 77. That's like, I think that's the only platform that is my name, but that's Snapchat. And then on TikTok and TikTok and Instagram, I am white_trash_Barbie. White Trash Barbie. Hello, and welcome to your daily serving of my voice. You are actually watching my YouTube. Anyways, with me, your host, Brooke, aka White Trash Barbie on Instagram and TikTok. If you've ever listened to the podcast, which I am going to get back into here in a little bit, I don't know. I'm still figuring out the angle that I would like to come at that from, if that makes sense, like the podcast, that is. I mean, it's called Inappropriate, but it's not just about sex. It's about anything that society might deem as inappropriate. So I'm still figuring it out, and I'm also doing this YouTube, obviously, which is a lot of work itself. I am going to get back to re-uploading on the podcast, but there's still, if you haven't listened to the podcast yet, what the hell are you waiting for? It's called Inappropriate. It's on Spotify. It's on Amazon. Go to my YouTube. There's a link to my website or my landing page, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And I have a link on my landing page to the Spotify version of the podcast and to the Amazon version of the podcast. So all you got to do is go to my landing page, which you can find here on the YouTube, and you can take your pick and you can find the podcast easily. Because I know, like, I try to search for my own stuff sometimes and I can't find it. And I'm like, thank you for ruining my day, algorithms. Thank you, truly. for making me feel really good about myself. If you can't find it by searching inappropriate, just go to my landing page and the links are there for you to find. But I'm going to get back to it at some point. Don't know when. But right now, this is what we're focusing on. So what I was going to say, and I forgot because I got distracted, was that if you, let me turn this light off. Hold on. I don't want backlighting. That doesn't help. Well, okay. Anyways. If you follow me on Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat, I'm going to do a video about the Christmas present that I made for my best friend, which is an advent calendar, but it's like a photo advent calendar. So it's an advent calendar, and every day he gets to reveal a new photo, or every day of December leading up to the 25th, he gets to reveal a new photo that he doesn't know what it is, but it's like some kind of photo that's like special to us and our life in some way. It's like a photo keepsake advent calendar that I made, and it's so cute. I'm going to do a video about it. I'm also probably going to write out a full ass blog so that if somebody wants to literally follow step by step, they can go through there and do that. So I said that on my other socials. So if you did not know, I'm going to be doing that video relatively soon, but I'm pretty excited about that. If you're a DIY girly like myself, need something to feed that creative thirst, then you might enjoy that. I love advent calendars. I've never had one. I've always wanted one. Nobody's ever gifted me with one. Hint, hint. Anyways, I think they're so fun. Like having a new surprise every day to like you get to like open or reveal. How fun. Yeah, I've always wanted one, but nobody's ever given me one. So I said, fuck it. You know what? I'm going to make one. And I also turned it into like a photo keepsake. So I thought that was a great idea, which is why I'm going to document it and share it with everyone so that if somebody wants to recreate it, they can. Now, let me get back to what the fuck we were doing today. Last time we ended the reading, Barry, the attorney for the prosecution, was cross-examining what they are referencing as an art therapist. She analyzes art of people in order to find out what's going on with their mental health, basically, which is actually really cool. And we learned a whole lot in the last video, which I thought was a really cool video. So if you haven't watched the last video, which is reading 27, you need to go back because it's fucking cool. I didn't know any of those things. If you go back and watch it, let me know if y'all knew any of those things, because I mean, some of them kind of make sense, but still, I don't know. I just thought it was fascinating. I was a psychology major. That is what my bachelor's degree is in psychology. So of course I think anything relating to psychology is cool shit. So if you haven't watched last video, go back and watch it because it's really fucking cool. I have to set a timer because I told myself I was not going to do any more hour-long videos. Speaking of mental health, editing an hour-long video is not good for mine. I'm going to shorten these videos to like me reading for like 20 minutes. And I don't know how long that's going to translate over once I edit the video to like the final cut, but I'm trying to like limit myself so that I don't want to jump off of a building whenever I go to edit these videos later on. So Barry's cross-examining Jordan's witness, this art therapist, and she's just asking her like one last question about Emily's painting. So I'm going to read these last few sentences. I'm not going to get into exactly what she's talking about because you can go back and watch the last video to know exactly what the fuck she is talking about. But I am going to read the last few sentences and then we're going to move on to the next section like we always do. Nothing further. Jordan sat down, smiling at Chris. I'd like to recross, Your Honor. Barry stepped in front of Sandra Vernon. You just told Mr. McAfee that you occasionally do preliminary assessments from art that is not directive issued. Yes. And you said that 9 out of 10 pictures which have disturbing elements wind up pointing to someone with mental problems that need to be resolved. Yes. What about the other 1? So apparently 9 out of 10 disturbing pictures point to somebody struggling with their mental health. But then Barry's like, well, what about that other 1? That's not the 9 out of 10. And Sandra's like, well, Sandra said, he or she is usually just fine. Barry smiled. Thank you, she said. And now we're moving on to the next section, honeys. Strap in, get your hot tea, get your decaf coffee, get your regular coffee, get your glass of wine, whatever drink of choice, cozy drink of choice, and little snack you like to have. Get whatever that is for you. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this story with me. Joan Bertrand was a plain, middle-aged woman whose dreamy green eyes spoke of hours spent recasting herself in the world's greatest novels, or even, perhaps, with her favorite male students. Did y'all hear that? That is shade? Is the author throwing shade at this lady right now, at this character? Hold on. Anyways, even perhaps with her favorite male students. Within moments of taking the stand for the defense, Chris's English teacher managed to convey that he was not only a beloved pupil, but quite possibly, in her opinion, one of the next great minds of the 20th century. Joan Bertrand then as it has just told us, is one of Chris's teachers. And apparently she really, really likes Chris. Not only a beloved pupil, but quite possibly, in her opinion, one of the next great minds of the 20th century. Jordan gritted his teeth around a smile. So Jordan is like already annoyed with this lady, but obviously he's trying to save his client, so he's going to do what it takes. He's going to deal with this lady, you know? Jordan gritted his teeth around a smile. Off the stand, when her only props were a chalkboard and rows of student desks, Bertrand hadn't been quite the zealot she appeared to be in the courtroom. What kind of student is Chris? Joan Bertrand clasped her hands to her heart. Oh, excellent. I don't think I've ever given him less than an A. He was the sort of student the faculty discussed in the teacher's lounge, you know. Who's got Chris Hart for social studies this term? And things like that. Was he in your class last fall? Yes, for 3 months. Mrs. Bertrand, do you recognize this? Jordan held up a neatly typed essay. Yes, she said. Chris wrote this for Advanced Placement English. It was handed in the last week of October. What was the assignment? To craft an argumentative essay. I told the students to take a confrontational issue, a very hot topic, and to come down on one side of it using their own personal beliefs. They were required to state a thesis, find support for it, disapprove the antithesis, and come to a conclusion. Ah, Jordan said. I understand that much better. Most college sophomores couldn't do this. Yet Chris did a wonderful job. Could you tell us what Chris's essay was about, Miss Bertrand? Abortion. And what side did he favor? He was very impassioned about being pro-life. Were the students required to actually believe in the issues they wrote about? Yes, some of them didn't, of course. But we met several times during writing conferences, and I can tell you from speaking to Chris that he was quite strong in his convictions. Could you read, Mrs. Bertrand, the part that's marked off on the bottom of page 4? The teacher held the paper at arm's length, squinting. There is not really an issue about choice at all. It is against the law to cut short someone's life, and that law must apply universally. To say that a fetus is not a life is to split hairs, since most bodily systems are in place at the time most abortions are undertaken. To say that it is a woman's right to choose is also unclear, because it is not only her body, but another's as well. She glanced up, waiting. You're right, that is pretty clear. In your opinion, Mrs. Bertrand, would Chris Hart have killed his girlfriend because he found out that she was pregnant? Objection, Barry said. She's an English teacher, not a mind reader. I'll allow it. Puckett answered. Jordan glanced at Barry. Would you like me to repeat that question, Miss Bertrand? In your opinion, would Chris Hart have killed his girlfriend because he found out that she was pregnant? No, he never would have done that. Jordan flashed his dimples. Thanks, he said. Joan Bertrand stared after him. No problem, she sighed. Barry stood up immediately. Unlike Mr. McAfee, she said, I used to love English. It sounds like Chris did too, and that he was certainly one of your favorite students. Oh, yes. You can't imagine him doing something as horrible as committing murder. Absolutely not. And, of course, based on that very impressive essay, you can't imagine him taking a baby's life or shooting his girlfriend in cold blood? No, I can't imagine him killing anyone. Not even himself? Oh, Mrs. Bertrand shook her head vigorously. Certainly not. Well, let me just recap then. Barry began counting off her fingers. He wouldn't have taken a life. He wouldn't have taken Emily's life. He wouldn't have let Emily take her own life. And he certainly wouldn't have killed himself. But on the other hand, we have a dead body. We have a confession from Chris saying that Emily was going to kill herself and then he was going to do the same thing. And we have all sorts of evidence placing Chris at the scene of the crime. She tipped her head to the side. So, Mrs. Bertrand, what's your theory? Objection, Jordan roared. Withdrawn, Barry said. God damn, I would hate to be this lady right now. Is it just me, or is Barry literally grilling the fuck out of this lady? This is embarrassing. Barry's making this poor woman look like a complete ass of herself. Next section. During lunch, Chris was taken downstairs to the sheriff's office. Jordan brought him a turkey sandwich and ate his own on a folding chair outside the cell. I felt bad for her, Chris said, his mouth full. Mrs. Bertrand. She's a nice lady. Yeah, unlike the prosecutor. Jordan shrugged. Different jobs call for different styles, he said. I was just as cutthroat as she was when I was an AG. Chris smiled faintly. You mean as opposed to now, when you've gone all soft? Hey, Jordan said, holding his hand up to the bars of the lockup. You're not starting to doubt me, are you? When Chris didn't answer, Jordan snorted. Oh, ye of little faith. At that, Chris looked up, quite serious. I have faith, he said. I'm just not sure in what. He set his unfinished sandwich into the foil and balled it up, discarded. What happens, he asked, if I'm found guilty? Jordan met his gaze. You'll have a sentencing hearing, he said, and based on that, you'll be transported down to Concord. Chris nodded. And that's it? No, we'll appeal the decision, which could take forever and go nowhere. Jordan looked down at his sandwich, which suddenly tasted like sawdust, and did not say anything. You know, it's funny, Chris said. You don't want honesty from me, and all I want is honesty from you. He turned away, running his thumbnail over the bars of the cell. But I don't think either of us is all too damn happy with what we're getting. Chris, Jordan said, I'm not giving out false hope, but your two best witnesses are still to come. And then what, Jordan? His attorney stared at him, face perfectly blank. I don't know. It looks like Chris is getting irritated with Jordan, his lawyer, his defense lawyer. Next section. There was a slight hubbub in the afternoon when Stephanie Newell took the stand, and someone sitting in the back row of the courtroom threw a rotten tomato that landed square on her blouse, yelling, Murder! Before he ran out the door. Following a minor recess, during which Stephanie was given a clean shirt and the police were called in to deal with the small-scale anti-abortion display, the court reconvened. By the time Stephanie Newell actually got on the witness stand and stated her credentials, most of the jury had already deduced that Emily Gold had come to Planned Parenthood looking for an abortion. I was the counselor, she said, assigned to Emily's case. Do you have a file on her? Jordan asked. Yes. When did you meet with Emily? I first met with her on October 2nd. What did you do at that meeting? I held a preliminary interview with Emily and explained the results of the positive pregnancy test and her options. When was your next meeting? October 10th. We require a pre-abortion counseling session, and the abortion is paid for at that time. We also ask if someone will be there to help the woman through the procedure. Like the father of the child? Exactly. Or, in the case of a teen, her parents. But Emily indicated that her parents were not supportive, that she hadn't told the father about the baby, and that she didn't want to. How did you respond to that? I told her that she should tell the father, if only so that she had someone to lean on. And when did the two of you next meet? October 11th. That was the date that the abortion was scheduled. The counselors present to offer support before, during, and afterward. Jordan walked toward the jury box. Did the abortion take place? No, something upset Emily, and she decided against having the procedure. Jordan leaned both elbows against the railing. Was that strange? Oh, no. It actually happens quite a lot. People back out at the very last minute all the time. What did you do after she decided not to abort the baby? Stephanie sighed. I counseled her to tell the father. What was her reaction? She got even more upset, so I dropped the subject, Stephanie said. When was the last time you met with Emily Gold, Miss Newell? On November 7th, the afternoon before she died. Why did you see her that day? We had previously scheduled the appointment. Was Emily Gold upset about something that day? Objection, Barry said. Speculative. Overruled, Puckett said. Did Emily Gold seem upset to you? Jordan rephrased. Very much so, Stephanie said. Did she tell you why? She said she felt like she'd run out of options. She didn't know what to do about the baby. And what did you tell her? I reiterated that she should talk to the father, that he might offer more support than she expected. How much time did you spend talking about whether or not she should tell the father? Jordan asked. Most of the session, an hour. In your opinion, when she left that office, was she going to tell the father about the baby? No, nothing I said could make her change her mind. During the 5 weeks you met with her, did Emily at any time waver about whether or not she was going to tell the father about the baby? No. Did you have any reason to believe that she would have changed her mind after that last session? No, I don't. Jordan sat down. Your witness, he said. Barry walked toward the witness box. Miss Newell, you met with Emily on November 7th? Yes. What time? She had a 4 o'clock appointment, from 4 to 5. Are you aware that Emily Gold's death occurred sometime between 11 and midnight that night? Yes. Between 5 and 11 is, let's see, Barry tapped her chin. 6 hours. Were you with Emily during that time? No, I wasn't. Did you ever meet Chris? No. Were you party to any of their conversations together during the 6 hours before she died? No. So, Miss Newell, Barry said, is it possible that Emily did decide to tell Chris about the baby after all? Well, yes, I guess so. Thank you, the prosecutor said. Oh, shit. Here we go. Let's talk about that real quick. Chris's defense attorney brings in Stephanie Newell, who was Emily's counselor at the clinic when she was going to go get her abortion. That was working with Emily to, help her through the process. She was Emily's counselor for that. Emily had confided in this counselor, Stephanie, that she was never going to tell the father, that she was never going to tell Chris about the baby at all, ever, that she had no plans. Stephanie asked her multiple times again and again, hey, I really think that you should tell the father of the baby, and just trying to encourage her into that, in a kind way or whatever. Emily had not changed her mind at all since the first time she met her. Emily was very set on not telling Chris that she was pregnant ever at any point. Chris had no idea, because they're trying to say that he, quote unquote, murdered Emily because he didn't want to raise a child at such a young age, blah, blah, blah. Well, if he didn't know that she was pregnant, why the fuck would he kill her? Allegedly. He had no idea. And then Barry comes up. She's like, listen, you weren't with her for a chunk of 6 hours the day that she died, before she died. You were not with her for that 6 hours leading up to her death, so you don't know if she changed her mind or not. Okay, we don't know if she changed her mind and told Chris or not. Y'all can let me know in the comments the point that you think Barry's trying to make. Where's Barry going with this? I think at some point during that 6 hours that night leading up to Emily's death, that she changed her mind and decided to tell Chris about the baby. And then in sort of an emotional reaction, if you will, Chris freaked out and then killed her. That's the picture that Barry's trying to paint. Maybe Emily changed her mind that night, and maybe she did tell Chris about the baby. Maybe he freaked out and killed her. What do they call that? There's a term for, if you're a true crime person, put it in the comments and let me know what that's called. When it's kill somebody in a fit of rage, out of emotion. It's the murder is not planned and never was planned, but it just happens out of an emotional reaction. I'm thinking that Barry is insinuating, painting this picture, that that's what happened here. That's the argument that she's trying to sell to the jury right now. But y'all let me know what you think also. And if you know the term for that type of murder, let me know that also, because I can't think of what it's called. And now we're going to move on to the next section. And we got to talk about it before we move on, because it's a big deal. It looks like Michael Gold, Emily's dad, the next witness coming onto the stand. Michael Gold walked to the stand with all the enthusiasm of a condemned man. He kept his eyes trained on the judge, deliberately refusing to see either Melanie on his left or James Hart on his right. As soon as he was seated, his hand on the Bible, he looked at Chris and he thought, I am doing this for you. So now we'll talk about it. If you've been following along, then you already know that Michael Gold here is Emily's dad, the dead girl's father. As we all know, Michael is feeling very guilty because he is going to be testifying for the defense, which is Chris. The prosecution and Emily's mom, his wife, Melanie, all these people, on the prosecution side, believe that Chris murdered Emily, right? That's the whole argument. Michael is feeling really torn and guilty because he has had to go against his wife and the entire prosecution, basically, because he wants to stick up for Chris. It's just been insinuated that he feels, for whatever reason, like Chris is innocent, and he is going to take up for Chris on the witness stand for the defense. This is like torn his marriage apart, torn the whole case wide open, basically. His daughter is the dead girl, and he is going to be defending the boy who supposedly murdered her, even though we don't really know if he did or not. His marriage is torn apart. His life is in shambles. Just really going through it right now. He kept his eyes trained on the judge, deliberately refusing to see either Melanie on his left, which is his wife. So he's like not looking at Melanie. She's livid. She's pissed as fuck about it. In my opinion, Melanie truly believes that Chris murdered her daughter. You know he's sleeping on the couch. You know his ass has been on the couch for a while. You know they're not talking right now. Or James Hart on his right. Okay, the reason that we have to talk about this is because there's just a lot going on here. In that like very short sentence clip, there's a lot being said. James and Gus are Chris's parents. James and Gus are married. However, there has been this weird sort of romantic friendship going on between Michael, Emily's dad, and Gus, Chris's mom, and they're both married. Emily over here, we have Melanie, and we have Michael married, and Emily. Okay, and then over here we have Gus and James Hart, and then we have Chris, their son. Chris is on trial for the murder of Emily over here. Okay, and then we have Gus, Chris's mom, and Michael, Emily's dad, having like this weird little romance. It's a friendship, but it's like a little too much of a friendship. If you've been following along, then you already know, like we talk about it all the time because it's just juicy as fuck, right? So it says, or on his left, James Hart on his right. Like, so he's refusing to look at James, who is Gus's husband. He likes Gus. He's been spending time with Gus. He has a crush on Gus, whatever. He cares about Gus, whatever. There's just so much shit, weird shit going on right now. Clusterfuck of a situation. He's refusing to look at his wife, and he's also refusing to acknowledge the husband of the woman that he is currently interested in. Both of them are married, and he's about to go defend his daughter's quote unquote murderer, but we don't really know. Now that we're all on the same page, let's keep going. Okay, as soon as he was seated, his hand on the Bible, he looked at Chris and he thought, I am doing this for you. He looks at Chris and he's like reminding himself internally that I am doing this for you. For whatever reason, it's just been assumed that Melanie and Michael would both testify and be witnesses for the prosecution against Chris, right? It's taken a lot out of Michael to stand up against his own wife and the entire prosecution, basically, and stick up for Chris. So he must really, really believe. That's a hard thing to do. That's a very hard thing to do. But anyways, he must really believe that Chris is innocent. Otherwise, he wouldn't be putting himself through this, you know? What do y'all think? Let me know. I am doing this for you, he thought. In his heart, he could not imagine Chris murdering his daughter. The prosecution could have shown Michael a smoking gun with Chris's hand still on it, and he'd have had trouble believing it. But there was a small seed of doubt in his mind, one with the potential to grow to enormous proportions, which asked, how do you know? And he didn't. No one did but Chris and Emily, and it was possible that Chris had done the unthinkable, which was why he would not give Jordan McAfee what he wanted. Michael and Jordan had met 4 nights ago to go over his testimony. If you tell the jury outright that Chris did not kill your daughter, Jordan had said, then Chris will have a fighting chance. Michael had politely agreed to think about it. But what if, that little voice had said, but what if? He stared now at the boy his daughter had loved, the boy who'd made a baby with her, and he silently apologized for what he would not say. Let's just put this into context real quick. Chris's defense attorney is trying to talk, or has been trying to talk Michael into just outright saying that he believes that Chris did not kill his daughter. Michael can't do it. Michael had politely agreed to think about it, but what if? That little voice had said, what if? So Michael is not going to outright say because he doesn't know, obviously. Of course, because Jordan is Chris's defense attorney is like really trying to talk Michael into just outright saying, hey, Chris did not do this, because that would be like their ultimate defense, right? The dead girl's father even says that Chris didn't do this, you know? So Jordan's really pushing for that. And Michael is just kind of like, I'll think about it, but probably not. Just trying to be like polite. The thing that's keeping him, Michael, from just outright saying that and just like giving Jordan what he wants and giving Chris what he wants is the fact that he doesn't know. As it says, but what if? Like, what if? And he's thinking, what if, Chris, on the off chance some insane, crazy thing happened and Chris really did kill my daughter, right? Like, this is like his internal thoughts. Like, what if Chris really did kill my daughter? Like, what if it actually happened? So that's what's keeping him from just outright saying that Chris did not do this. He can't betray his daughter by saying that if he really doesn't know? Because what if Chris did? And it was possible that Chris had done the unthinkable, which was why he would not give Jordan McAfee what he wanted. That's what it means when it says, which is why he would not give Jordan McAfee what he wanted. He's not going to give Jordan McAfee, Chris's defense attorney, what he wanted, which is to say that Chris absolutely did not do this. But Michael's not going to do that because he's having these like little what if doubts in the back of his head. And he silently apologized for what he would not say. Okay. Mr. Gold, Jordan said gently, thank you for being here today. Michael nodded. It must seem strange to be testifying for the defense, he added. After all, this is a murder trial and the defendant is accused of killing your daughter. I know. Can I ask why you decided to testify today for the defense? Michael licked his lips, his brain mechanically shuffling for the answer he practiced with Jordan. Because I knew Chris every bit as well as I knew my daughter. I'll be brief, Mr. Gold, and I'll try to make this as painless as possible. Could you describe your relationship with Emily? I was very close to her. She was my only child. Tell us about Chris. How do you know him? Michael's eyes touched on Chris, sitting very still in his chair. I've known him since the day he was born. What was the age difference between Chris and Emily? 3 months. In fact, Chris's mother helped deliver Emily. I was a little late. Chris was in the hospital room with my daughter before I was. And you watched them grow up together? Oh, yeah. They were inseparable. From the first day, they shared a bassinet. Chris used to be underfoot in our house just as much, I guess, as Emily used to be underfoot in the Harts. When did they move from being friends to something more? They started dating when Emily was 13. How did you feel about that? Jordan asked. Michael picked at the sleeve of his sports jacket. How does any father feel about that? He mused. I was protective. She was always going to be my little girl, but I couldn't think of anyone else I'd rather have Emily explore all that with. It was going to happen at some point, and I knew and trusted Chris. I certainly trusted him with the most important thing in my life, my daughter. In fact, I'd been trusting him with her for years by then. What was your perception of their relationship? They were very, very close. More so than the average teenager, I think. They confided in each other all the time. God, I can't think of anything Emily didn't tell Chris. He was her best friend, and she was his. And if that was moving on to a slightly more adult level, it was probably time for it. How much time did you spend with Chris? Hours, Michael said faintly. Every waking minute, it sometimes seemed. Would it be fair to say that Chris saw Emily more than you did? Yes, he grinned. I guess I saw her about as much as any parent sees a teenager. Jordan laughed. I know what you mean. I've got one of them at home. At least I hope he's at home. He walked toward the witness stand. So you didn't see Emily all that often, time-wise, but you still felt very close to her. Absolutely. We always ate breakfast together, and we talked the whole time. Jordan softened the edges of his voice. Mr. Gold, did you know that Emily was sexually active? Michael turned red. Maybe I suspected it, but I don't think any father really wants to know that. Was it something Emily discussed with you? No, I think it would have made her as uncomfortable as it makes me. Jordan reached towards the railing of the witness stand, bridging the distance between himself and Michael. Did she tell you she was pregnant? I had no idea. To your knowledge, did she tell your wife? No. She was very close to you and your wife, but she didn't tell you? No. Michael looked up at Jordan, offering the smallest gift he could. I think it was the sort of thing Emily wouldn't have told anyone. So Emily didn't mention her pregnancy. Did she tell you she was depressed? No, she didn't. Michael swallowed, knowing it was coming to this. And I didn't notice it myself. You didn't see her all that often because she was with Chris. I know, Michael said, his voice hollow. But that doesn't work as an excuse. She hadn't been eating very much, and she was under a great deal of stress with college applications and everything. And I thought that there was just a lot going on in her life. He reached for a glass of water, set out for the witness, and took a sip, blotting his lips with the back of his hand. I keep thinking, he said softly, that I'm going to find a note, one that I can use to make myself feel better, but I haven't. It hurts to lose my daughter. It hurts more than anything else has ever hurt in my life. And